And good afternoon. It is Friday, and that means it is time for our Lunch and Learn. And today we're going to be talking about childhood obesity and childhood chronic disease, which is horrible. I mean, when you're little, you should be outside and playing and all those kind of good things and not having any kind of sickness and disease or any kind of health concerns. But more and more, we are seeing young people with some really tragic health concerns. And so we wanted to bring some attention to this. And thankfully, we do have in our own government, we do have Robert Kennedy Jr., who is trying to clean up our food supply. And I think that that's going to go a long way toward helping us to be healthier and smarter. So this particular report says that United States children face 80% higher death rates than children of wealthy countries. Now that's just crazy. 80% higher. So the United States children are dying at rates far exceeding those of other wealthy nations. And this is according to a study that shows United States infants are about 80% more likely to die before their first birthday, and children overall face an 80% higher death rate than their peers in 18 other developed countries. Now, I know that we normally pride ourselves on being in the United States of America, and we've reported on this phenomenon before, that while the United States spends an enormous amount on healthcare, our healthcare outcomes are very, very low for our wealth, our socioeconomic where we stand in the world, okay? And so this is not right, and we're going to be talking about some of the reasons why this might be happening. And as a mom, and I've got children and I've got grandchildren, we do not want to see our children face an 80% higher death rate. So these findings were published in JAMA's original investigation, and they paint a very troubling picture for the United States of America. So this was a comprehensive study. It examined health trends from 2007 to 2023, and it reveals that the United States experiences an excess of 54 child deaths every day compared to what should be expected if America matched the mortality rates of other wealthy nations. For infants, premature birth and sudden death syndrome drives the higher mortality rate. All right, why is this? Well, if you look at all of the information with all of the different countries, and one of the things I want you to compare is the mandatory vaccination schedules that we have here in the United States and that other Western European countries use. And you will see that we by far inoculate our children with more vaccines, different types of vaccines, and more doses than any other country. And so there is evidence that is coming out that says that this is part of the issue. However, this crisis extends well beyond mortality. The study, which analyzed 8 major data sources, including national mortality statistics and large-scale health surveys, found deteriorating health across every measured category. Everyone, all 8, everyone. Over a 16-year period, so this was not one day, this was not 1 year, this is a 16-year period, this daily toll remained consistent, underscoring the systemic nature of the crisis. Chronic conditions have surged. A child in 2023 was 15 to 20% more likely to have a chronic disease compared with a child born in 2011. Proportion of children ages 3 to 17 had at least one chronic condition, okay, and that rose from 26% to 46%, so that doubled. Okay, so what are we doing that our health outcomes are not great? Well, one thing is the obesity epidemic. Now, Steve and I were talking about this last night because I was talking about what we were going to be talking about, because that's just what you do. And I asked him, when he was in high school, or even elementary school, were there any obese children? And he said, we had just one girl that was just a little bit chubby. Okay, so a little bit chubby and obese are two different things, right? So when I'm thinking back in my childhood, in my school, and we just celebrated our 50th reunion, okay? And so when I'm thinking back, we had a few, little girls that were a little bit chubby. We had a few boys that were a little bit chubby, but not anything that was to be considered obese, okay? Also, back in the day, we did have the President's Physical Fitness Award, and so we did have organized games, and we did have recess every day, which helped us to become more and more active. Thankfully, we are bringing that back. I don't know exactly when that's going to be instituted, but it just seems like, and I may be wrong, and it may be different in different parts of the country, but I do know that the schools have stopped doing recess as a general class in some areas. And so I think that is really, it's a disservice to our children, because our little human bodies are not made to just sit in a chair for 8 hours straight, 6 hours straight. We're just not made to do that. And I do think that children need to have space to clear their brain, clear their bodies, run, play, decompress, and that kind of thing throughout the school day. So hopefully we're coming back to that. But back in the day, there were no obese children in school. So this is sad, okay? The obesity epidemic, 1 in 5 children is affected by obesity. 1 in 7 girls begins menstruation before the age of 12. The share of children 5 to 17 experiencing at least one physical symptom, such as poor sleep, chronic pain, or activity limitations, has increased from 20% to 30%. So this is 1/3 of all children have something, seriously wrong with them while they are still in school. This is something that we need to be aware of, and we need to find out why this is and what we can do to avert this. Mental health also has deteriorated sharply. Depressive symptoms have risen at an alarming rate, with nearly 40% of high school students reporting persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness by 2023. Now, we do understand that in 2019, with all the things that happened and the shutdown and all that, children were deprived of community. They were deprived of school. Everybody was looking at a screen. They were not interacting face to face. And we did find that this led to a sharp increase of depression. And so we do know that humans are supposed to be social. They're not supposed to be cooped up. And so this is one of those things that we need to figure out how we can get more socialization with the children and not have them, totally isolated and that kind of thing. Okay, so unlike previous research focused on single health issues, this study's comprehensive approach reveals how multiple factors are converging to create the pediatric health emergency. Despite spending nearly twice as much on healthcare as other high-income nations, the United States continues to see worse health outcomes. The editorial accompanying the study noted that Americans have long had poor health compared to other wealthy countries, and though this was previously seen in the adult population, we are now seeing it at an increasing level in the pediatric population. Now, I can tell you that as an adult with young children, back in the day, not today, but back in the day, we lived in Scotland and we lived in England. My late husband was British and his work took him over there. And so we were over there, and we did not have access to fast foods. We did not have access to ultra processed foods. And the children were very, very healthy in the schools, and there was not the obesity that is going on that we see here in the United States. I do remember that when we came back to the United States in 1991, I was so excited that there were such things as fat-free, sugar-free, fudge cookies and all that kind of thing. Little did I know back in the day that they were full of preservatives and things that led to chronic health conditions. So just full disclosure, we know better and then we do better, right? So this is what this report is all about. is to help us know better and do better, both for us and for our children. So prematurity rates, children born premature in the United States, are at a historic high, driven by maternal chronic conditions such as diabetes, pre-pregnancy hypertension, unhealthy weight, smoking, alcohol, and substance abuse. And so, you know, I would really, really hope that as a young person, when we find out that we are pregnant, we kind of clean up our act, because it's not just us that we are affecting, but we're also affecting that little organism that is gestating inside of us. And so because most people don't have that particular point of view, we are seeing that the United States has the worst rate of premature births in our socioeconomic area. 93% of U.S. adults are metabolically unhealthy. Oh, that's a big word. Metabolically unhealthy. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to talk to you about that. This means that there is a widespread chronic disease and poor metabolic health. Every year, 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 pregnant women in the United States develops gestational diabetes within the United States and Canada, showing a very much higher prevalence than in Europe, depending on what screening method is used. The United States also has the highest chronic disease burden and obesity rate of nearly twice that of the Organization for Economic Cooperation Development average. What does that mean? That means if you look at us as a nation and you compare us to other countries that have the same amount of wealth, or, you know, on the same kind of bandwidth, we are worse. We are way worse. And so metabolic, what does that mean? So your cells in your body, they work. They divide, they multiply, they divide, they multiply, your proteins fold, and different things happen. All of that is called metabolism, okay? We think of metabolism as in, am I overweight? Am I not overweight? Do I have a fast metabolism? Do I have a slow metabolism? But what we really need to do is extend that definition a little bit far, because your metabolic health is how your body responds to stress. Is it able to keep moving, or does the stress, whether the stress is, oh my God, the internet went out for the 15th time today, or is the stress a virus, a pathogen, a bacteria, a parasite, a heavy metal, a chemical, all that kind of thing. So that is the broader understanding of metabolic health. When we have a chronic disease, then our metabolism, okay, the way our cells function, is not able to withstand the onslaught of the oxidative stress that leads to the chronic disease. So that being the case, what we do here in the clinic is we will scan you when you come in to see us with this lovely little PS3 scanner, okay? This one's getting ready to be retired. All right, because the company is coming out with one that's about this big. It's about the size of a hockey puck, and you can put your little finger in the center of this little hockey puck thing, and it's going to give you all kinds of information about your health. But right now, we have access to this one, and what this one does is it measures the amount of carotenoids in your body, and the amount of carotenoids in your body gives you an idea as to your metabolic health. Are you healthy? Are your cells doing what they need to do? And as we read in this report, most of us are not. However, we've got two products that I want to talk about today about metabolic health. Chronic disease is a metabolic issue. So what are chronic diseases? Obesity, diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease. All of those are metabolic diseases. And so when we want to work on our body, we want to target those metabolic processes. And so we've got a lot of products that will do that, but I want to focus on two today. This one is one of my favorite products. It's called Meta. What are we talking about? Metabolism. Okay, metabolic issues. So the hint is in the name. Now, I love this, not because they are my favorite color. They are purple, okay? But they've got, and I'm going to say the word wrong if I don't look at it, and the print's too small for me, or anthocyanins or something like that. Anyway, these are superfoods, right, that go in and work at the metabolic level in order to keep your cells working the way they need to. And so this is something that if you are suffering with a metabolic disease, this is a product that you need. It helps with kidney disease, it helps with liver dysfunction, it helps with pancreatic issues. What is our main pancreatic issue? It is diabetes, right? Insulin resistance and all that kind of stuff. So this product helps with all of those metabolic baselines, right? That if these are not right, then you're going to go in and you're going to develop a metabolic disease. And so we don't want that. We've seen amazing things from the doctors, from the medical doctors, with regards to kidney function, liver function, pancreatic function. So this is something that's really, really good. If you are concerned about metabolic disease, which we all should be. We all should be. Because if we're not functioning right at the metabolic level, we're not going to function. At some point, we'll just quit functioning. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today is this little product, M-Smart. Now, the M does not stand for metabolism, although it could, but it stands for meal smart. This is a product that you dilute. In fact, I'm going to do it just because I can show you how easy this is. I've got this bottle of water, and I fill it up to here. The instructions say to do 6 to 8 ounces. So that's probably about 8 ounces there because it's like a 16.9 ounce cup bottle. Cut the top off. Oh, I didn't do it low enough. Cut the top off, and then you pour it into your bottle. Okay. As my good friend Denise says, it stains everything. You know why? Because it has beta carotene in it. So beta carotene is from what? Carrots. All right. And so I put it in a bottle and shake it because it's got plant fiber in it, and it can be a little sticky, clumpy. I don't like clump. Okay. I don't do clumping well. So you just shake it up. It looks like orange juice, but it's not orange juice. It tastes kind of like iced tea. It's not sweet like Southern iced tea here in the United States, but it's not bad at all. So why do I like this? I have incorporated this into my everyday life because it helps with your metabolism. It helps you metabolize your carbs and your sugars in a healthy way. So I've said before, one of my favorite meals is chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, corn, and macaroni and cheese. None of the things that are good for you, but that's one of my favorite stress meals, just being real here. All right. So when I eat that meal, which is not very often, but when I do, I'm very lethargic afterwards because what does that do? All of that white stuff, the macaroni, the mashed potatoes, and of course the corn, because the corn is a starch too. Don't forget about the cream gravy. We can't forget about that. All of those are carbohydrates, and it causes my blood sugar to spike and then fall. And I don't have a blood sugar issue, all right? But if I eat that many carbs, anybody's gonna have blood sugar issues. And so the thing that I like about M-Smart is that it helps you have a healthy response to carbohydrates. Now, I'm not saying it's okay to have that kind of meal. I'm not saying that. I'm not advocating that we go out and do that. But we are going to do that from time to time, depending on what your favorite meal is. And so when you incorporate something like this into your diet, you can do that with a little bit more grace. You know, don't beat yourself up because you know that you've given yourself a really good supplement that's going to help you metabolize those carbohydrates in a very, very healthy way. And so that's what we want to do. We want to change our food, right? But we also want to take supplements that also helps our body move the right way metabolically so that we're able to do what we need to do. And so this you take 4 every day, and in 90 days, you'll see a difference in your blood work and in your scans. This, you can do 1 to 2 every day. You do it 30 minutes before a meal. And I mean, it's just amazing what it does. So with our children, right, we have to worry about them as well. One of the things we have to worry about them is our children, as I said before, are not getting the exercise that they need. Why is that? Well, because they're always on their smartphones and their social media is disrupting their real everyday life. Okay, it can disrupt their sleep. It reduces their physical activity. It creates a cascading effect that leads to loneliness, depression, and obesity. Now, I'm just going to tell you, we went out. Wednesday was my birthday. Okay, and my husband took me out and we're having this nice meal. The restaurant was fairly quiet except this little child who was about, 6 years old, and she had her cell phone on speaker and she was doing FaceTime with somebody and it was loud. And her parents, she had a daddy and a mommy, they were both on their cell phones, not giving her any attention. At least the person on the other side of FaceTime was giving her some attention. But this is the thing that's going on with our kids. They're so glued into their phone that they're not having real relationships and they're not having the physical activity that they need. So researchers noted that while they did not study and classify the results according to socioeconomic status, race, or ethnicity, they shared these disparities are likely significant drivers. In an editorial in JAMA observed, quote, the United States has among the highest child poverty rate and income inequality in the OECD. And I can't remember what that is. I have it on my computer. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Okay, so this is terrible that we have the highest poverty rate. This is terrible. This means that the poverty rate leads families to rely on cheaper, calorie-dense foods that fuel obesity, and they have older vehicles that heighten crash risks. Now, I don't really understand that because older vehicles are more sturdy in most cases, and I'm only just understanding that because of the poverty rate, that they may not be able to do the maintenance on the vehicle, so the vehicles don't function properly. They didn't go into detail about that, but this is what I'm thinking here. So the study did not break down the results by demographic groups, but existing research reveals stark disparities that likely drive the overall condition of poor outcomes. Black mothers face significantly higher preterm birth rates linked to factors including lack of insurance, limited access to physicians who share their background. Now, I'm not understanding if this is Black women don't have Black physicians, which I find that really weird because I see a lot of Black physicians out there, or if it's they don't go to the doctor, so the doctor doesn't understand their background, doesn't understand what they need, and so does not provide the care that they need. This is a quote. As usual, limited economic resources can minimize nutrient-dense food sources, access to food sources, preparation approaches to available food choices, and or limitations in language, time, energy, and knowledge. Now, this is according to Linda Van Horn, who is a research nutritionist at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine, who was not involved in the study. Van Horn says that these economic disadvantages create cumulative effects across families and communities, broadly influencing U.S. public health in ways that perpetuate the cycle of poor health outcomes. So this is really sad. I want to break it down into that we can understand. We can go to the nearest drive-through and we can order off their 99-cent menu, and we're going to get a sandwich, we're going to get some potatoes, and we're going to get a drink for 99 cents. When we go to the grocery store and we're shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, because that's where the healthy stuff is, your dairy, your meats, your fresh fruits and vegetables, you're not going to get a meal for 99 cents. You're just not going to. And so when people have lower income rates, they need to make that money last longer. And so they're going to make poorer choices, not because I want to choose poor, but I only have X dollars and I need it to go as far as I can. Now, I know this personally because when my husband died, I was 42 and I had young teenage children, and we were automatically reduced to one salary, and I did not make the big bucks then. My husband made the big bucks. So we had to learn how to survive on, less than half of what we were used to surviving on. And so what did we do? We did the 99-cent menu more often than I would like to confess, but that's because we had limited amount of money and we had to do what we had to do. And so this is what is driving this epidemic. And so we need to figure out what we can do in order to have better outcomes. I mean, obviously, we all need to get better jobs and that kind of thing. But there are also things that we can do in our society. This is about half of what I wanted to share with you today. And so I'm going to come back next week and finish up with what our schools are doing and how grassroots pressure is making a change in what's going on at our schools. And so what I want you to do as a mom, as a dad, make sure your own metabolic processes are good. If you've got a chronic disease, you need this. If you are having snack attacks all the time and you're eating all the wrong things, you need this. So we've got help for you. We've got help for you. You need to do that. If your children are in that category, I want to help you make some right decisions. I want to give you some resources and that kind of thing so that we can, together, we can help with our outcomes, our health outcomes. I'm not happy that the United States spends twice of what everybody else spends, and yet we have the worst outcomes of any nation that is in our socioeconomic bracket. So these are some sobering things, right? And so we can change it. Knowledge is power, and we can change it. And so that's why we do these lunch and learns. It's not just because I just love to pontificate on all these things, but it's information that may be new to me. A lot of it is new to me, but I can bring you solutions so that you can change your health. And this is what we want to do, okay? It is the weekend. What do we always say? Refresh, rejuvenate, relax, right? Restore. All those are words. That's what we want to do on the weekend. So I'm going to see you next weekend. We're going to do this, the second part next weekend. And on Friday. And I'll talk to you next Friday. So have a good weekend. I love you so much. Thank you for sharing, liking, commenting, all the things. And I'll finish up next week.